We're going to be talking about financial instruments, financial markets, and financial institutions. Now, there is a lot of detail in the chapter and a lot of facts, and I'm going to focus mostly on the economic principles angle. I'm leaving it to you to study the detailed facts. Here's a very elementary definition of finance. Direct finance, in principle, means the ultimate borrower is dealing with the ultimate lender directly, without the use of an intermediary agent. Indirect finance is finance that uses one or more intermediate agents, like a broker or a bank or some other institution. Assets are a form of store of wealth. A liability is like a debt. We owe somebody a stream of payments into the future. So you borrow to buy a car, you own the car is an asset, but the debt that you owe the bank or the lender is your liability. But even with a direct loan, a financial asset or a financial instrument of some sort is usually involved. That is to say, a piece of paper documenting that there is a contract and the terms of the contract. A financial asset is property. It's something that can be traded. So your debt to the bank for a car loan can be sold to another institution if the bank wants to. Maybe you hold a treasury bond. That's a debt the US government owes the holder of the bond. You don't have to keep that bond forever. You can sell that bond to somebody else, and the new owner of the bond now will receive the stream of payments into the future from the US government. So, when a big corporation or the US government wants to borrow, it is not engaged in direct finance. It doesn't directly borrow with you or me. It issues these bonds, treasury bonds. It puts them out on the market to be sold, and whoever buys those US treasury bonds in the first round then becomes the funder of the US government. If a US treasury bond is sold to you, you now, in effect, are the funder of the US government. And your reward for funding the US government is the stream of payments that you receive as long as you hold that bond. Considering the big picture, what is the ultimate value of having a financial system? Is it just a huge game to transfer wealth from one group of people to another group of people? To an economist, the value of the financial system is it's as a way to connect borrowers and lenders. The financial system is a way for you and I to borrow from strangers. Imagine if you wanted to buy a house and you could only borrow from friends and relations. Not very practical. It wouldn't work. That's what the financial system is about when you get to the very bottom of what it's for. It's to enable somebody who's never met you, who doesn't know you, to lend money to you, and vice versa. This is a form of trade over time. You are able to consume or build or produce or employ people now by borrowing now, and some of the extra new wealth and production created by that activity will be the reward of the person or agent who made a loan to you. It is trade over time. And as we know, economists like trade and exchange. Trade and exchange is the basis for specialization, and specialization is what creates wealth. So to the economist, the value of the financial system ultimately depends on whether it supports the so-called real economy, real activity. Financial trade in itself is not valued. It's the support and infrastructure and enabling of real economic activity that is the test of whether you have a healthy, productive financial sector. This philosophy explains why economists can be skeptical about some so-called financial innovations like high-frequency trading. We ask the question, how is the real economy improved by that? Just because some agents benefit from a financial innovation does not by itself mean that the innovation is an innovation in the sense of curing cancer or in innovating to create some new technology that makes us all better off. The textbook talks in this chapter about high-frequency trading, and we'll come back to it at a future time. Let's talk about a financial instrument. A financial instrument is a contract, in effect, that is imaginarily on a piece of paper, although nowadays it's more electronic, and that instrument obligates one party to transfer something of value to another party. Time has to be specified very exactly here. When are the contracted payments due to be made, and in what amounts, and according to what conditions? And this instrument will have legally enforced terms, including all those things that should imagine or contemplate every possible contingency, including default. What will happen if there's a default by one of the counterparties? Some financial instruments have very clear benefits. For example, you're a farmer. You may sell a forward contract to sell wheat at an agreed price at a specified date in the future after your harvest. This is a form of insurance for you, the farmer, in case wheat prices are low in future. This gives you the confidence to plant crops today. That obviously benefits the real economy. It's a form of insurance, agricultural insurance, that allows a sort of sharing of risk between the farmers and the people who are buying the forward contracts. The party who buys the forward contract also is better off because they are guaranteed a certain amount of wheat at a certain date in future. Even if the price of wheat goes up, they will not have to pay the higher price. So this sort of contract benefits everybody, but it has to be embodied in a kind of financial instrument. In this case, the financial instrument is called a forward contract. By the way, some of the types of financial instruments we use originated in agricultural markets to ensure traders, farmers, and buyers against the risk due to weather. Later, those inventions were used to trade other things that had nothing to do with agriculture. Now, it would be theoretically possible to create a new, unique financial instrument for every single contract. That would obviously be inefficient, and so what we have is standardization. Our futures contract or forward contract for wheat probably has a very standard form, and every time two parties wish to use it, They fill in the blanks and take the existing format and adopt that. This has a lot of benefits. One benefit is that the legal implications and the legal angle has already been worked out. Another is that these standard instruments can be more easily traded in markets. So if you purchase a future contract for wheat, you are not necessarily planning to hold that. You can trade it. You can buy more of them if you want. So this is an advantage of standardization. If you're the farmer in my hypothetical story, once you've sold your future contract, you actually don't care who the ultimate recipient of the wheat is. You've got your money, you deliver the wheat to whoever is holding the contract at the time of the harvest. At this point, I want you to watch the Paddy Hirsch video on bonds, notes, and bills. Treasury bonds, notes, and bills are a form of financial instrument that the federal government uses to borrow from the rest of the world. And I will be assuming that you've seen this video by Paddy Hirsch. U.S. Treasury securities are not just any old treasury or any old financial instrument. They are very special because a U.S. Treasury bond in effect sets the lowest interest rate that you can expect from a safe asset. So when the U.S. government buys or sells or issues treasury bonds, it affects not just the interest rate for the U.S. government's borrowing, but it affects the interest rate for everything else in the United States. When you change the interest rate on a zero risk asset, every other interest rate on every other asset is going to be affected in the same direction. If the U.S. Treasury action causes the interest rate on a U.S. Treasury bond to go up, then every variable interest rate on every asset in the United States will go up by a little bit. If the U.S. Treasury causes the U.S. Treasury interest rate to go down, then every interest rate on every asset in the United States economy will go down by a little bit. So this is not just an illustration of some financial instrument that has been randomly picked. This is a very critical financial instrument to the whole of the financial system. One of the characteristics of a financial instrument is its riskiness. And part of that riskiness derives from the riskiness of the original issuer. And at this point, we can talk about mortgage-backed securities. Mortgage-backed securities are a financial instrument, a sort of bond that promises a stream of payments to the holder based on people paying their mortgages on time. Now, in the ideal world, if you buy a bond, a financial instrument, expecting to get a return, you prefer that the riskiness of the instrument and the riskiness of the ultimate payer is not even an issue, that it doesn't matter. You don't need to know. You would like to have 100% certainty that the ultimate payers are completely reliable and you will receive your dividend on time and in the amounts you were promised. That kind of instrument is called an information insensitive instrument. It does not carry the risk that the ultimate payer will default or fall short. So in this case, paradoxically, a lack of information or need to have information is actually a good thing. An information-sensitive instrument is an instrument whose value depends on the riskiness of the original issuer. So take a stock. A stock is a share in a company, like Apple. If Apple is doing really badly, you know the value of that instrument will fall. If Apple is doing really well, you know the value of that instrument on the market, should you want to trade it, the value of the instrument will go up. So a stock is an information-sensitive instrument. A US Treasury bond is an information-insensitive instrument. We always prefer an information-insensitive instrument. Now, mortgage-backed securities were treated and traded as if they were information insensitive, as if they were 100% safe. But actually they were not. And what happened was people were ultimately trading these assets with too much confidence in their security. See you next time.